My name is Marla Griggs. I've worked for the Northern Territory Police Force for 12 years, most of them spent on missing persons cases. It's not the most glamorous work. Most people don't like the idea of combing through wild bushland, hoping to find a shoe, a scrap of fabric, or if we're lucky, someone still breathing. But I've made a career out of it. Some say I'm good at it. Others say I've become obsessed. They're probably both right. My brother Jason went missing in 2012. He was 23. Fit, smart, stubborn. Decided to take a week out in Garreg-Gonak-Barloo National Park and never came back. I filed the report myself. I was still new to the force back then, barely 2 years in, but I searched harder than I ever have for any other person since. The case went cold. No blood, no tracks, no belongings. It was like he'd been plucked from the world without a trace. That was the beginning of my obsession. Corey McAllister was 26, a Canadian backpacker making YouTube videos of his journey across Australia. He wasn't famous, just another face with a camera and a thirst for the unknown. I saw his channel when the missing person report landed on my desk. His last upload was from 2 days before he vanished. The location was all too familiar, the same region where Jason disappeared. We found Corey's tent deep in the bush, a good 2 hours hike from the nearest trail. It was partially collapsed, his sleeping bag still inside. Food untouched, water bottles lined up neatly. But no sign of Corey. We might have written it off like the others, chalked it up to a wrong turn, heat exhaustion, or a crocodile attack if not for the GoPro we found half buried under a layer of leaves near the roots of a twisted gum tree. The lens was cracked, but the SD card was still intact. Back at the station, I locked the door, closed the blinds, and loaded the footage. The first few minutes were harmless. Corey was smiling into the lens, sunburnt and tired. Day 6. Off the grid, he said, panning around the treetops. Heard something weird last night, like wings flapping. Thought it was a bat, but it was too loud. Maybe a flying fox. Anyway, I'm moving west today. He turned the camera upward. At first, I didn't see anything. Then I froze the frame. There, hunched in the canopy, barely distinguishable from the bark and shadows, was a shape. Dark, wrong, perched on a thick branch, curled in on itself like a bat. And then, when he panned back, it was gone. Corey never noticed it, but I did. And deep in my gut, I already knew. I knew this had something to do with Jason. Later footage showed Corey cooking by the fire. He looked unsettled. Heard it again, he whispered. And there's a smell now, like something dead. Or wet leather. Hanging in the air. The night vision kicked in as the fire crackled lower. It must have been after 2 in the morning when he bolted upright, the camera jostling as he grabbed it in a panic. The sound came again. Slow, heavy wing beats. Not frantic like a bird. They sounded purposeful, almost intelligent. He stepped out of the tent, camera shaking in his hand. He didn't say a word. The forest was silent, too silent. Then he lifted the camera and pointed it at the treetops, and that's when I saw it. A figure hung upside down from a branch, its wings wrapped around its body like a cocoon. The texture of its skin was leathery, sagging in places like a dead thing left out too long. Its face turned slowly, and I swear it looked directly at the lens. Its eyes were black pits. Its mouth stretched open, revealing a grin so wide and unnatural that my own breath caught in my throat. No fangs, no roar. Just that eerie frozen smile. The camera dipped, then chaos followed. Branches snapping, Corey running. The camera bouncing wildly as he fled through the underbrush. The sounds were unbearable. Snarling wind, that awful wing flapping, and something else beneath it all. A low, rattling hiss like a breath that didn't belong to anything human. Then the camera fell. You hear Corey scream once, then silence. For a long moment, the forest is still. The GoPro continues to record, pointed at the trees. Then, soft and slow, something breathes into the mic. A dragging sound follows. The footage ends. I stared at the screen for a long time, replaying the face in the trees again and again. It was real. Not a trick of light. Not a costume. And not a man. I wanted to send the footage to HQ immediately, but I didn't get the chance. 2 men in dark suits showed up at the station that evening. No badges, no names. They knew exactly what I found and asked for the camera. I demanded to know what agency they worked for. One of them leaned in, calm and collected, and said, "You don't want to end up like your brother." That was when I knew. Jason hadn't gotten lost. He hadn't run out of food, hadn't slipped and fallen into a ravine. Something had taken him, and someone else had covered it up. They took the footage, told me to close the case. "Accidental death," they said. "No evidence of foul play." But I remember the elders I talked to when Jason vanished. One of them whispered about a garcane, a creature of the trees, of rot and shadow. A spirit that suffocates its prey before it feeds. A protector of the forest or a curse upon it, depending on who you ask. I think it's both. And I think it's still out there. I've written this down because I know they'll try to make me forget. Maybe they'll discredit me. Maybe worse. But if something happens to me, I want you to know the creature in the treetops is real. Don't go into those woods alone and don't ignore the smell. And if you ever hear wings flapping above you in the dark, run. I always loved the drive down to Clark Hills Lake. The winding roads, the towering trees, the scent of pine in the air. It all felt like coming home. My parents used to bring me here every summer, but it had been years since my last visit. The lake had always been special to me, but not just because of childhood memories. It was because of him. Tin. I met him when I was a kid, though I never told my parents. They wouldn't have believed me anyway. To them, Clark Hills was just a peaceful getaway, a quiet cabin by the lake. But to me, it was where I found Tin. A creature of the wild, something ancient. A dogman. He was my secret, my friend. I used to wish I could take him back with me to Fayetteville, but I knew that was impossible. Tin belonged here. He thrived in the deep woods, the moonlight glinting off his fur, his golden eyes watching me with something I swore was understanding. But that was a long time ago. Now as I pulled up to the cabin, an eerie silence settled around me. The usual hum of cicadas and rustling leaves was absent. I shut off the engine and stepped out, stretching my stiff legs from the long drive. The place looked the same. Weathered wooden planks, a porch swing swaying gently in the breeze, the smell of damp earth lingering in the air. Still something felt off. I set my bags down inside the cabin and stepped back onto the porch. The words left my lips before I could think better of them. "Tin." Silence. I tried again, a little louder this time. "Tin, are you here?" The wind picked up, rustling the trees, but there was no other response. I chuckled to myself, feeling a little foolish. What did I expect? That he'd just appear like he used to? That he was still waiting for me? Shaking my head, I headed inside, locking the door behind me. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The quiet was too deep, too unnatural. Then I heard it, a faint rustling outside, a slow, scraping sound. I froze, listening. The sound was wrong, too fast, too erratic. My stomach tightened as I moved toward the window. At first I couldn't see anything, just the trees swaying in the breeze, the lake reflecting the last light of the sun. And then I saw it. A pale figure crouched low to the ground, gaunt and long-limbed, moving on all fours. Its sunken, hollow eyes locked onto me through the glass. My breath hitched in my throat. That wasn't tin. It wasn't human either. The thing stood up slowly, its thin body unnaturally tall, limbs twitching as if struggling to control themselves. Then it moved, fast, too fast, toward the cabin. I bolted to the door, locking it, shoving a chair against it, my heart pounding in my chest. Then a crash. The window near the kitchen shattered, glass spraying across the floor. I stumbled back, barely dodging the shards as I grabbed my keys and ran for the door. If I could just make it to my car. A terrible screech cut through the air as the creature lunged through the broken window. I ran, flinging open the cabin door and sprinting toward my car, my heart hammering against my ribs. I reached the driver's side, fumbling with my keys, but before I could unlock it, crash. Metal twisted and screeched as the rake, because that's the only thing it could be, ripped through my car door like it was paper. A clawed hand swung out, slashing across my arm. Pain flared hot and sharp as blood soaked my sleeve. I barely had time to react before it lunged again. I threw myself backward, scrambling toward the trees. I had no choice. I had to run. Branches snapped beneath my feet as I tore through the woods, adrenaline drowning out the burning pain in my arm. Behind me, I could hear it, chasing, hunting. The rake was fast, almost impossibly so. I knew I couldn't outrun it. Then I tripped. I hit the ground hard, rolling onto my back just in time to see it looming over me. I couldn't move, and it was going to kill me, and then a deep guttural growl echoed through the trees. The rake hesitated, its head snapping toward the sound. My breath caught in my throat as a massive, fur-covered figure emerged from the darkness. Tin. His golden eyes locked onto mine for a brief moment before he lunged. The fight was brutal, fast, vicious. Snarls and screeches filled the air as the two creatures clashed, claws slashing, teeth snapping. Tin was strong, but I could see the wounds already covering his body. Old injuries, fresh ones from this battle. Still he fought. He fought for me. The rake moved with terrifying speed, its long claws slicing through the air. Tin dodged the first swipe, but caught the second across his shoulder, dark blood splattering onto the forest floor. He barely flinched. With a savage snarl, he lunged, his powerful jaws clamping onto the rake's arm. A sickening crack echoed through the night. The rake shrieked, twisting unnaturally, and drove its claws deep into Tin's ribs. Tin howled in pain but didn't let go. With a violent jerk, he tore the rake's arm clean off. But the thing didn't stop. It reeled back and leapt onto Tin, its teeth gnashing at his throat. Tin grappled with it, the two of them rolling across the ground, snapping, clawing, shredding. The rake tried to retreat, but Tin was relentless. He lunged again, knocking it onto its back, pinning it down. With one final monstrous growl, he sank his teeth into the creature's throat and ripped. The rake convulsed, its screams fading into a sickening gurgle. It thrashed for a moment longer, then fell still. But Tin... He stumbled back, his breath ragged, blood dripping from his wounds. I crawled to him, my hands shaking as I reached out. He was dying. "No," I whispered, my voice breaking. No, stay with me." His eyes found mine one last time, filled with something I swore was recognition. Then slowly, his breathing stopped. I sat there in the dirt, cradling his massive head, my blood mixing with his. I don't know how long I stayed like that, long enough for the adrenaline to wear off, for the cold to seep into my bones. Then I heard voices. Footsteps. I looked up and 3 men stood at the edge of the clearing, dressed in black suits. Their expressions were unreadable. One of them stepped forward. "Miss," he said, his voice cold and professional, "we need to speak with you." I stared at them, my mind spinning, and they didn't look surprised. They didn't even look disturbed by what they saw. And that's when I knew this wasn't over.
They say when your time comes, you know it. Some deep part of you starts counting the seconds, burning every detail into memory. The cool rustle of wind through pine trees, the damp rot of the forest floor, the ache in your shoulders from being hogtied in the back of a truck for over an hour, and the smell God, that smell. Before the killing started. Let me take you back. I was a dead man. Screwed up a deal with the wrong people. Messed up the money. Some cartel product gone missing. I had excuses, reasons, things I wanted to explain. But men like Ricky Morales didn't care for explanations. He cared about making examples. They snatched me off a back road outside of Athens, Georgia. 3 of them. Ricky, the leader and a royal bastard. Troy, a pit bull in human skin, always itching for violence. And Kevin, the new guy. Twitchy and unsure. The kind of guy who hadn't killed before. Ricky was going to change that. I was bound tight, ankles together, wrists behind my back, and a rag jammed so far in my mouth I couldn't even mumble. Every bump in the road sent a jolt through my spine. I laid there, tasting dirt and blood, bouncing in the bed of the pickup truck as we drove deeper into the woods. Regret is a bitter thing. I thought about my mom, thought about my brother, who warned me 100 times to get out of the game, thought about my old girlfriend, the one who begged me to go straight. I remembered the first time I held a wad of drug money and thought I'd finally made it. What a joke. The truck stopped. Ricky yanked me up by the collar, and the 3 of them dragged me through the pines until we reached a little clearing. Moonlight filtered through the branches, but it felt like we were miles from the rest of the world. Ricky lit a cigarette and paced in front of me. "This is what happens when you fuck up," he said. "I ought to do it myself, but Kevin here, he needs to grow some balls." Kevin didn't move at first, just stared at the hunting knife Ricky handed him. "Do it," Ricky barked, "unless you want to join him." Kevin stepped behind me, shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. I could feel him trying to steady his hand. The blade pressed against my neck, cold, sharp. Then, snap. A branch broke somewhere in the trees. Everyone froze. Troy cocked his head. "You hear that?" Ricky pulled out his pistol. "Probably just a deer. Do it, Kevin." But Kevin hesitated. Then came the rustling, something circling, heavy, fast, the kind of movement that didn't belong to anything small. Then silence, and then the smell hit us. Like hot garbage mixed with rotting meat and something worse. Wet fur, maybe. Or a decaying carcass left in the sun too long. It was thick and sour, burned the back of your throat, and made your stomach churn. I gagged through the rag. Kevin actually retched, doubling over. "What the hell is that smell?" Troy asked, stepping back. Ricky sniffed the air, then cursed under his breath. "Something's out there." Then, eyes. A pair of glowing amber eyes in the brush. Tall. Too damn tall. Ricky shouted, "What the fuck is that?" Troy raised his shotgun and fired. Boom! Leaves and bark exploded. Nothing. More rustling. Behind them now. Ricky screamed. "It's circling. Light it up." They fired wildly into the woods, bullets cracking through the air. But it didn't matter, because whatever it was already behind them. Troy was the first to go. 1 second he was there, the next he was screaming. Something pulled him into the brush with such force his feet left the ground. Bones cracked. Flesh tore. A wet gurgling sound followed, and then silence. Ricky screamed and fired blindly. Then it came for him. It burst from the trees, a towering black shape, fur matted with blood and filth. Its head was like a wolf's, but twisted wrong, snout too long, jaws too wide. Its eyes burned like fire. It grabbed Ricky by the shoulder and ripped. His scream was short. The thing tore him in half like a paper doll. I rolled onto my side and grunted through the gag. Kevin looked at me, eyes wide with terror. He hesitated. "Please," I managed to mumble. "Help me." The thing was feeding now. The crunch of bone. Wet slurps. Kevin knelt down and started cutting my bonds. "We gotta move, man. We gotta get out of here." As soon as my hands were free, I ripped the rag from my mouth. "Cut my legs, quick." He did. I stood, legs numb, but working, and we bolted. The dogman roared behind us, a sound that didn't belong in this world. It chased us fast, crashing through the trees like a freight train. Kevin stumbled. I didn't even think. I turned and decked him hard. He went down like a sack of bricks. I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned, until I didn't hear the screams anymore. I never saw Kevin again. Cops found his remains days later, said it was a bear attack. I knew better. I spent months waking up screaming, got clean, got therapy, moved to Florida, met a woman who made me feel human again. We've got 2 kids now, a house near the beach. But sometimes, when the wind shifts just right, I smell it again. That rot, that stink. And I remember Ricky, Troy, Kevin. Dead men don't run. But I did. And I lived. Thank you for watching Cryptid Encounter Stories. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying tales of the unknown. Your support helps keep the stories alive and the monsters lurking. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and always keep an eye on the shadows.